Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In this occasion, we would like to do a presentation about first language and second language learning from the book Saville-Troike, page 16 until 21. Before that, we would like to introduce ourselves.
Hello, my name is Keken Nurneza.
My name is Helda Mustika Candrawati.
My name is Fikri Yazid.
My name is Rizqi Nur Laili.
My name is Elysa Agustina.
I'm Nur Fatikhah Hakim, and we will present about first language versus second language learning.
First language and second language learning is divided into three phases, and the first phase is initial state. The initial state, which many linguistic and psychologists believe includes underlying knowledge about language structures and principles that is in learners' heads at the very start of second and first language acquisition. And the second one is about the intermediate states. The intermediate states cover the stage of basic language development. This includes the expressional changes which take place in what we have called child grammar, and the second language development subsequent, which is known as learner language. And the last is about the final state. Final state covers the final state, first and second language learning. And the next is I want to explain about the initial state. Initial state, it is not all certain whether or not such natural abilities is part of the initial state of early language acquisition. Some linguistics psychologists believe that the genetic predisposition which children have from birth to learn language remains with them throughout life, and the differences outcomes of first and second language learning are attributable to the other factors. Others believe some expect will disappear with age, and no inequality language acquisition remains beyond childhood. Next,
Many who take a physical perspective in turn reject social constitute evidence because the many variables which go along with actual social usage can not be controlled for experimental investigation. So also the question of the extent to which innate capacity for language acquisition remains available in SLA is a very interesting and important for me. It is like to remain unresolved for some years to come. 1. The entails knowledge of the language in general works as well as myriad of language-specific features which are only partially relevant for production of the new L2. This prior knowledge of L1 is responsible for the transfer from L1 to L2 during second language development, which we will consider as part of the second phase of L1 versus L2 learning. 2. Initial step for L2 learning also includes knowledge of means for accomplishing such interactional function as requesting, commanding, and promising and apologizing, which have development in conjunction with L1 acquisition but are not the L1 initial state. 3. The initial state for L2 learning. On the other hand, the has research of L1 competence, work knowledge, and established skill for interaction, which can be both an asset and impediment. Next.
Intermediate states. L1 and L2 learners go through intermediate state as they progress from their initial to their final state linguistic system. Predictable sequencing of many phenomena within each and some similarity of sequencing across language. In the fact that L1 and L2 learners play a creative role in their own language and do not merely mimic what they have heard and been taught. As far as intermediate states of first language acquisition and second language learning as concerned, they may be compared by looking the basic process. Basic process development is a spontaneous and largely unconscious process in L1 child grammar, where it is closely correlated with cognitive maturation. The development of learner language for L2 learners occurs at age when cognitive maturity cannot be considered a significant factor. And L2 learner reach highly level of maturity and can use L1 by authority by the time they start learning L2. Instead, cognitive maturity, language influence or transfer the prior of knowledge. And after that, from L1 to L2 is the process involved the development in language, interlanguage of learner language. Cross-language influence or transfer may be positive or negative. Two major types of transfer which occur are the first positive transfer and the second is negative transfer. Next.
Why does positive transfer facilitate L2 learning? It is because the structure L1 has the same function as L2 means that a new one doesn't have to be learned if one of the words have the same spelling and meaning. For example, exterior and outside is a word in both Spanish and English. And why does negative transfer facilitate L2 learning? It is because a word in L2 cannot be changed to L1, or an integration of elements which would not occur in monolingual speech. For example, latah in Indonesian, if we change to English, it would be have a long sentence. That is a nervous condition characterized by erratic, involuntary, imitative behavior, often pornographic or socially disapproved. During the intermediate state, older children, adults, and L2 users have access to word knowledge that has come with cognitive development or experience. The concept combined with word knowledge are often too complete for adequate expression and limited capabilities. However, it is possible that some of the context is conveyed and tends to stimulate learning L2 vocabulary. Transfer of knowledge and skills to an L2 setting is clearly made easier when L1 support is available as part of L2 learning, and when K terminology is shared across languages, but conceptual transfer occurs in any case. Next.
Facilitating condition. While L1 learning by children occurs without instruction, and while the rate of L1 development is not significantly influenced by correction of immature forms or by degree of motivation to speak. Both rate and ultimate level of development in L2 can be facilitated by many social and individual factors. Identifying and explaining facilitating conditions essentially addresses the fundamental why question of SLA. Why are some L2 learners more successful than others? And some of the conditions which we'll explore in chapters that follow are: first, feedback, including correction of L2 learners' error. Second, aptitude, including memory capacity and analytic ability. Third, motivation, or need and desire to learn. Fourth, instruction, or explicit teaching in school settings. Necessary condition. Language input to the learner is absolutely necessary for either L1 interaction, L1 or L2 learning to take place. Children additionally require interaction with other people for L1 learning to occur. Reciprocal social interaction generally facilitates SLA. It is not a necessary condition. It is possible for some individuals to reach a fairly high level of proficiency in L2 even if they have input only from such generally non-reciprocal sources as radio, television, or written text.
Next, the final stage of learning L1 or L2 is a native linguistic competence, while vocabulary learning and cultivation of spatial registers, such as a formal academic writing style, may continue adulthood. The basic phonological and grammatical of system of whatever language children learn around them are essentially established by the age of about 5 or 6 years. Uh, Along with vocabulary knowledge and interaction skill that are acquired for fulfilling communicative functions, and to the final stage of learning second language development, again by definition, can never be a totally native linguistic competence, and uh, the level of proficiency which learners reach is highly variable. The complex of factors which contribute to differential levels of ultimate multilingual development is a major interest for both SLA theory and second language teaching methods.
Okay, that was our presentation about second and first language learning. And if you have any question, you can write down on Padlet. And thank you for watching this presentation and see you.
I wonder how, I wonder why. The day you tell me about a piece of sky, and all that I can see, just a yellow lemon tree. I wonder how, I wonder why. The day you
Semongko kini tinggal